Welcome to the show where we discuss the first Marvel Netflix series and discern the truth about why this show stands above the rest. The elements of quality storytelling that other shows are blind to.
But not this
But
show.
not this show. Join us as we start, for the last time, Discerning Daredevil. Tonight we're talking about the series finale, A New Napkin. How the hell are you doing tonight, Dragon? Hell's Kitchen, get it?
Yes, I do, my friend. Yes, I do. You know what? I feel complete. I feel a sense of achievement, my friend. I feel a sense of brimming possibilities, all encapsulated on a little napkin.
All right, folks, we're not going to get into the gory details here, but it's been a rather trying time trying to record this last Daredevil podcast. Dragon, occasionally you and I have these podcasts where it just seems like everything goes wrong at every turn trying to get it done. Occasionally we run into these. This is one of them. But alas, Dragon, something has hit in the broad spectrum of Disney news. You know, a little convention in Anaheim that Monkey may or may not have attended, that Disney Plus announced a whole slew of Marvel shows that made Jacob Gulliver's wildest dreams come true, with the possibilities of a Moon Knight show. So, Dragon, I feel like with all the new stuff that we're getting with Marvel Netflix, it's time to finally close the books. We've been waiting for the right time to do Daredevil. We've been waiting for the right time to really do this. I'm ready. I've had a good day. I don't have a migraine or anything. I'm in a good space in my life. I think we can get this done and in the books and actually have something that Father Lantom will be proud of, Dragon. Father Lantom would be
proud of his boy.
Oh, that was a forced one.
Basically, folks, we're gonna end game this, man. We're gonna do this whatever it takes.
Well, hopefully it won't be 3 hours long.
Well, sure.
I want to make a point, like, that shouldn't be our goal.
Okay, fine. I mean, the whole time we're going back in time to do this right of it all, not the 3 hour. If anything, we're taking Act 2 of Endgame, which is an hour, which will be our benchmark. All right.
All right.
Anyway.
Okay, so without further ado, Dragon, let's get right into the thick of things. Let's get into the plot.
All right.
This painting's gonna have blood on it soon, Vanessa, and it will be gloriously symbolic.
All right, folks. Plot goes like so: Kingpin's getting married, and Daredevil crashes the wedding in more ways than one. Let's say, even gets Bullseye in on the action in order to take Fisk out once and for all, which leads to a lot, as you can guess it, wedding day chaos. Meanwhile, with Nadim's help from beyond the grave, Foggy and Karen save the day. Also, after an amazing three-way fight, Matt makes a big choice, which ultimately leads to a happy ending with a new napkin and Bullseye waiting for revenge. And that's it.
All right. Okay, arcs, Dragon, arcs. So, of course, this is going to be rounding off all the character arcs. So let's dive right into Matt. Of course, Matt is on a quest for not necessarily revenge, but just to end things, to finalize things. He's kind of like on a quest that's mirroring our quest this episode, Dragon. We're just as desperate to finally record this podcast as Matt is to kill Kingpin this episode, and he'll go to any lengths to do it. And it's kind of like finally he's sort of on the road where he believes that killing Fisk is the only option at this point, and that's really what a lot of his arc this episode is revolving around, is kind of like getting to the point where he finally can see the light and see the humanity in the situation. That's what his arc really builds up to, and we'll get to that. That's a big important moment that of course you're going to want to build up to. But suffice to say, throughout most of the episode, Matt is just kind of like this lone man on a mission who's basically, he hasn't necessarily given up on humanity per se. He's more in touch with humanity than he's been all season. Like, he's willing to work with people, but he's determined. It's like, no, nothing's gonna slow me down with this. I am killing this man, and this is going to happen. And I don't care what you say about me losing my humanity in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's on a path to restore the status quo, which would basically be his happy ending. All three of our main arcs that we're going to get into here, kind of under the umbrella that I like to refer to as kind of the war of the happy endings. All three of our main guys here trying to have either been robbed of a happy ending or in pursuit of a happy ending. And I guess in the grand kind of crux of the series, this actually brings up a great kind of final note for the
Darren Aronofsky direct this.
Last I checked, no.
Aronofsky's like big themes is like unfulfilled happy endings in our own personal stories.
I think the bigger arc in the grand scheme of things, Tiki, is that something we've been talking about ever since the Kingpin was introduced in this series is that Matt is. This episode, he kind of comes to accept the parallel that he shares with Fisk ever since season 1. That seems to be kind of a big, grand, sweeping thing with his arc as a whole. And like this episode, literally every step, the path that he's chosen in taking out Fisk, the dark path that he's kind of selected here, not out of malice or revenge, as you said, but again, just kind of get it done to achieve the status quo, to get things done. It's the only logical thing to have. We have to kill him to get it because we can't send him back to prison. It's just it's a no-win situation as we've done it before. And in doing so, each step closer down that path brings him literally and figuratively closer to Fisk and becoming like Fisk. Because think of it, he manipulates like Fisk does. He both overestimates his control of his pawn Bullseye in this situation, while also underestimating how crazy and off the rails Bullseye will go, which kind of leads to making some questionable choices on Matt this episode. Where again, like he doesn't intend for anyone to get hurt, obviously, because he thinks he can control the situation. Like he's just going to use Bullseye as a Trojan horse to get into the wedding, and then take him out before. Hopefully, the best case scenario, I'm going to take Bullseye out after he's killed the Kingpin. Then no harm, no foul, right? That's what he thinks might happen.
And kind of killing two birds with one stone, literally, where it's like, hey, and I don't have to kill the Kingpin in the process. I can just say that Bullseye did it.
The poor birdies, Tiki. The poor birdies.
God. Yes.
And as he does that, Tiki, progressively, as we see with him saving Vanessa, he just can't fight the heroic bug in the situation. I think in doing so, he kind of sobers up from this path and he realizes, no, I can't do this. And he kind of reluctantly discovers this during his big primal scream moment, let's say. And,
yes.
And to use Foggy's own words in the episode, he kind of says Matt can't forgive this act. Like Matt couldn't forgive himself in the literal sense if he committed murder. And that's, I think, it's not just a matter of killing; it's an act of like he'll never be able to undo this. Like wipe this from his ledger. It's not like Blackwood. He can't wipe this red from his ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And he's. I think the last thing to note here with Matt is that he. At the end of the day, what fascinates me about this episode is that he kind of something I never noticed in the first watch. I always noticed in the rewatch is that. He's taking a positive lesson away from Fisk at the end of the day. Fisk is a character throughout this whole season. He never wavered from who he is. He always accepted who he was. And, that's kind of what Matt does here. He accepts who he is, and he's exercising power and control the way Fisk does all throughout the series. He's taking that positive lesson away from him where basically I choose to remain who I am, but I'm not going to be the suffering Job anymore. Like I know I'm working for God in the grand service of things here. I'm going to be Job, but I'm not going to be the Job who's like blatantly ignorant. I'm going to be an enlightened Job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
Okay, speaking of Fisk.
All right, transitioning then into Fisk. Like you said, Dragon, in the plot synopsis, this episode with Fisk can basically be summed up in Fisk and Vanessa are getting married, XOXO.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really kind of like a nice, simple, set piece for the grand finale, of course. And it's something that Fisk has been working towards pretty much the whole run of his show is, cementing this, this relationship that he's worked so hard in season 1 to build and in season 3 to secure. Yeah. So, yeah, it really is kind of like the perfect set piece.
In all fairness, the last episode, he kind of shook a little bit in this, where he kind of saw that Vanessa actually has a bit of a bloodlust to her, but he's moved past that. He accepts her, but that moment, while he fully accepts her the way she is, the same way she does him, it does give him pause, and so close to achieving everything he's wanted ever since the end of season 1. he's contemplating the bigger question: do I deserve a happy ending? Do I deserve her? Do I delude myself with this happiness I feel with her just because I like the way I see myself in her reflection? Where again, ordinarily, as we established so well visually in this episode, he sees the bloody, broken child that is Wilson Fisk from Rabbit in a Snowstorm every time he looks into a mirror. But the only time he doesn't see that is in Vanessa's eyes, which is why he loves her. And he's just wondering, is that like, do I deserve that? Is that just me projecting onto her or not?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a really fascinating question. Again, of course, Vanessa kind of eases him up past this, and the point being, with that moment, from that moment onward in the episode, he's achieved everything he's ever wanted. He marries Vanessa, and he's willing to die in this episode because he's achieved the ultimate victory of the series. I mean, yes, he's been kind of undone, I guess, in the legal sense of the word here, but again, like he could die happy. The wedding is his last victory. It's like our bad guy has won essentially, but can we let him get away with that? And at the end of the day, I feel Fisk, it's kind of the ego and the sentimentality are ultimately his undoing with all the stuff we kind of laid out with Bullseye in the other episodes. And it's kind of it was kind of like the big blind spot that took him down at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. The Vanessa has always been kind of like a big, of course, ever since the beginning with the whole like killing a man with a car door. Vanessa has been kind of a soft spot for him. And in season 1, that soft spot kind of manifested in violence. But in season 3, the soft spot was more kind of like, all right, like a lack of violence. Like, I'm going to do things more by the book. I want to do right by this woman.
And again, an episode where Matt's humanity is in jeopardy, Fisk is something we never have to worry about because his humanity, while it's his most appealing character trait, is also his greatest weakness that brings him down. So it's kind of a great balance and parallel yet again those two share. And I love that in the end of things, looking at especially the course of this season, I guess the course of the whole series when you look at it, I love that in the end, he is yet again separated from Vanessa. However, it's on his terms. Yet being the operative emphasis here, yet he is robbed of a goodbye, and he's kind of humiliated, and he's embarrassed in front of her.
Great.
He ends up being embarrassed in front of her yet again.
Please let me say goodbye to my wife.
It's like the final defeat where again he chose for her to protect her. He'll go away. It'll be separated from her on his own terms. He's not going to be planning a long term like Nelson Murdoch sent me to prison, separated me from Vanessa. It's not that. It's like I chose this, but again, like I couldn't get that goodbye. We know how that's going to stick in his crawl. So it's where we leave him.
All right, is that about it with Fisk?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Dex.
Yes, Bullseye. So,
all right, I love just the Dex and Matt dynamic in this episode, and we'll build to that. But just starting with Dex himself, where do you want to start, Dragon?
Well, let me first acknowledge, I think this episode gives us the fully formed Bullseye. This does all the great Bullseye stuff here, where like he becomes so fully realized, and like one, he's so mirthless at the FBI. He's just kind of like the classic kind of like.
For what it's worth, I honestly think like I don't know as much about the character as you do. But I think that even as far back as the attack on the Bulletin, we've had more or less fully formed Bullseye.
That is true. You're absolutely right there, Dave. Basically, we get all the fan service. I mean this in the good. We get all the fan servicey stuff with Bullseye. Where like we have like the precision. We get to see visually how Bullseye operates and how he looks and just how cool he is. Of course, I mean by fully formed is like even in this episode, the only thing that's lacking is the costume. Basically, if he wore the black getup he usually wears, then it'd be 100%. But that's not important because again, this complements their story here. But what I love is that like he's just this episode we psychologically and physically break Bullseye, and that's what gets it. That's the transformation from Dex to Bullseye. That we mentally kind of like the North Star thing is thrown out here, and he's presumably going to operate as his own North Star. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. What I mean is, like we're doing all these fun things. Like he's just such a prick at the FBI. Like where he was talking about Nadim. He's like, oh yeah, you never know about how sick a puppy Nadim was to his wife, and like yeah, don't beat yourself up. Of course, he's the monster that did all this. And we just escalated.
You're still FBI family, Seema.
Yep. so twisted. And of course, they know that he's the bad guy too, which makes it even more twisted. And that's what I'm saying, Tiki. This is the episode where we escalate him to the full-on Jason Aaron levels of crazy with Bullseye, where Jason Aaron, Bullseye being like he's tasked to kill the Punisher, therefore he kidnaps a family for a few weeks, lives with them, and restages the murder, and then kidnaps another family because it didn't feel right to get into the head of his enemy.
That's great.
That's what I'm saying. We kind of circle that sort of Bullseye, which is my dream for Bullseye in the Daredevil Netflix series. So I really got my wish this episode with the stuff we do with Julie.
Sure.
So he's with the whole happy ending of it all, he's robbed of his happy ending and his status quo with Fisk, where everything was going great for him, and now he's informed by Matt that no, God, everything was a lie, I've been manipulated, and he ends up crashing the wedding wearing the symbol of trust and power that Fisk gave him. It doesn't get more poetic than that, folks.
Well, let's not talk too much about that wedding crash because it's one of my favorite moments of the episode.
Right about that. In the end, the last big thing Bullseye had, though, is in the end, as I mentioned, I love that he's already mentally broken, but now he's physically broken with like his spine being broken by the Kingpin in that awesome three-way fight. And again, all of this, we took the standard FBI guy, and we because he got caught up in between the big struggle between Daredevil and the Kingpin, look where it brought him to this place where he's being repaired. And of course, being broken is definitely a thematic thing we have with Kingpin as well. I probably should mention that. The idea of like we're all broken, Wilson. That whole speech, that whole idea. Where Dex, this whole series, he's been kind of broken upstairs, and now he's repiecing himself back together in more ways than one. And if I were to speculate again, the show that hopefully praise the Marvel gods, praise the mighty five.
Honestly, Dragon, I don't want to be the pessimist in the room, but I think at this point the best case we can hope for, like, I honestly think that it's even a stretch for the casting to be the same. I think the best we can hope for is just like a reboot of Daredevil in the MCU, like a proper movie.
All right, well, we'll see. Regardless, what I love though is I think the note that it leaves on, like my summation, where again, even if this is the variant where we would be going with this, where we'd be going is that I love the idea that he's going to operate as his own damaged North Star in the future. The idea that all those North Stars have let him down. He being this kind of the scrambled, broken man that he is. He will he'll be operating as that going forward.
Sure. All right, let's. That's it.
Yeah. Just he's kind of broken and repiecing himself back there, looking for revenge. That's where we leave Dex. Yes, that's all.
Okay, let's move on to Daring Dynamics. Come on, D. I'm not even in this season, yo.
Again, alas, poor Turk Daredevil, the only casualty of this season, the only small nitpick I have in this entire season. He didn't get Turk Barrett.
I haven't watched Jessica Jones season 3 or Punisher season 2. Does he show up in either of those?
Well, I want to say he's in Punisher season 2. I believe he is, but I don't quote. It's been a while since it's been a long while since I've seen Punisher season 2. I know he's not in Jessica Jones, but again, he was in the others. He was in season 2 of Jessica Jones. So
that's a shame that they don't properly wrap up his thing.
It is cool.
I feel like a lot of the MCU is just kind of like the Claire thing, where she was kind of like the Coulson of the MCU for a while. That just kind of went nowhere.
However, good news, he is in all of the Netflix shows, though. He has appeared in all of them. Not season after season in all of them, but he has appeared in all of them, technically.
That's true.
Pretty sweet. Anyway, of course, like the most appropriate season because he has a moment in Born Again. That's why it's such a sad thing. He stabs Matt Murdock.
Yeah, right. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what that was about. All right. Anyway, so yeah, with the Dynamics, let's transition from Dex's solo career to Dex and Matt as a dynamic, which is just wonderful. One of my other favorite moments of the episode, besides Dex crashing the wedding, is Matt just straight up fucking with Dex over the phone.
Oh, yeah.
How did it feel killing those little birdies, Dex?
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is classic.
And you can tell, Matt's, straight up enjoying this after all the stuff that Matt's been put through with Dex at the helm of a lot of it this season.
Oh yeah. See, Tiki, this is the great thing between about Dex and sorry about Bullseye and Daredevil. That these are two guys that hate each other so much. The only thing that would rival Kingpin as the arch enemy of Daredevil is Bullseye. And at this point in the series, after all that they've done with each other, remember it's like two fights into the show where Bullseye just consistently kicked the crap out of poor Daredevil. It's just the fact they just hate each other so much, and Matt is it's just on the phone, like using the deep personal thing that he knows about Bullseye just to screw with him and just kind of get back at him while he's kind of saying like, "Hey, you're being He's also kind of like, obviously not at a mouse because to help serve his own ends to get at Fisk here. He's just telling him like, "Hey, Fisk was using you. He killed Julie. He did all that stuff to you." And in a way, the perverse thing, as I was mentioning with the whole North Star thing, Matt operates as Dex's North Star for a stretch in this episode and getting him
he
on
does
his side.
for a brief. He has a brief stint in the role,
and that phone conversation makes it even more appropriate because again, it's like the recorded sessions that he would have with Dr. Mercer. Again, just via kind of a recording or via kind of like a disconnect, personally,
Uh-huh. So
But,
yeah, all that's really fun. Of course, like you already said with the Matt arc, the big flaw with Matt's plan is the fact that he thought he could keep Dex on a leash, but that's definitely he really underestimated Dex in that regard.
Oh yeah, the one thing I really want to note here with these guys is I love how, as I mentioned with this, I love on the phone. I love that in general, Matt really dives into kind of what we kind of set up way back during the first season, kind of the devil side of the devil of Hell's Kitchen, where he's that soft spoken, Charlie Cox doing the soft spoken, really the guy who knows the personal things about you, like he knows your heart rate, knows all that sort of stuff. In this case, he knows all the deep personal things about you, and he's there during like the worst parts of your life, and you're making like the discovery of frozen bodies and everything. That's what I love. They're really digging into the roots of who these guys kind of classically are, and they're really kind of mixing up to do like an enemy of my enemy story. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, I guess moving on to Foggy and Karen then.
Yeah.
All right, so basically the way I describe this whole storyline is it's the race to save Matt Murdock's soul.
That it is. It really, it's so fascinating. They save the day with no help from Matt when you really think about it.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, because they're saving the day in hope that you're right. It's kind of a race against the clock to save the soul of Matt Murdock before he does something he can't take back in killing Fisk. And they're both, as I mentioned, like throughout this, throughout the season, they're both kind of champions of. They're both kind of the angel devil on Matt's shoulders. Both kind of like they're taking a lesson from Matt on both sides of the alter ego. Foggy being the champion of faith in the system, law and order, and Karen representing friends and kind of the Daredevil tactics and kind of her dark story of the season, kind of like making some questionable choices and just trying to forgive herself, all that sort of stuff. Very much kind of in the two sides of Matt Murdock, and they've come together in previous episodes, and now they're again. We see Matt having reliance on his friends actually saved the day, and then people caring about him is what saved the day, not even just him working with his friends. Because we saw that how close they got in the previous episode here. It's all relative. They're very proactive in saving the day. Foggy with his FBI visit, and Karen, of course, with the Nadim video.
Yeah, and of course Nadim comes back from the dead, Dragon. He's he's Ghost Nadim. It's the first time a ghost has been made canon in the MCU outside of Yondu's ghost in Guardians of the Galaxy Monsters After Dark. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Born Nadim's the new Ghost Rider, whichever way you want to look at it.
Oh my god, that would be amazing, though. You've got to admit, that'd be cool.
It would be cool. Yeah.
I mean, there'd be no context for him writing anything, but, it'd still be cool.
But yeah, and where we leave, it's really great. I love how we leave Karen and Foggy. Basically, we reform Nelson and Murdock and Paige, with the new napkin of it all, with our guys here at the end, where like Foggy's on the path of getting married. We leave our guys in a good place here. Foggy's on the path of getting married, and Karen is, she's accepting the broken side of herself again with the whole broken message of the episode. She's accepting who she is. Basically, per her exchange with Matt, you can only do so much good to outweigh the bad. Again, kind of erasing the red from the ledger. Again, the bar from Black Widow. I don't know why. I don't know. It happens to fit. Anyway. So yeah, I love that the dream has come back, and basically throughout this whole season, their dream at the very start of the season has come true. That they wanted their friend to come back to life, and he's been alive the whole time. Bear in mind, but he finally has come back to the fold. It's like they got their buddy Matt Murdock back. That's justice for them to get that back. It's good for them.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a simple, happy ending, but it's a satisfying one.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's see. So really quick, we'll tackle a couple like lightning round dynamics. Let's go with Foggy and Mahoney.
Mm-hmm.
So of course this is really full circle, Dragon, because correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Foggy's first scene in the whole show with Mahoney?
Give me 1 second. I think you're right, Mr.
I
Friend.
want to say his first scene in the whole show is the exchange with like, you got to stop buying my mother cigars, Nelson. I believe that's his intro.
I think you're absolutely correct. Here's the only thing, because there's two scenes. Well, wait a minute. Yes, it would have to be. You're right. I think you're absolutely right here, because the only other scene I can think of is when they're together. But of course, when they're together, they're taking Karen's case, which would have to be the only way they get that is because of the cigars. Therefore, has to be the Foggy scene. I think you're right.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's really satisfying that that's the first time we ever see Foggy is, kind of playfully antagonizing Mahoney. And then by the end of it, not only is Foggy welcomed into the Mahoney household, but Mahoney definitely has a mutual respect for Foggy, and they're working together really well. And Mahoney definitely sees Foggy as the ally to the police department that really Dragon, I'm doing everything not to say that Hell's Kitchen deserves, but I can't think of another word for it. So let's just go with that.
Little again. Now I feel kind of silly, but I think that scene does come before, because I remember they're touring the building. Remember when they buy the office, and maybe it's that scene before that. But the point being, it's a really big scene. It's the first scene that they share where Foggy's really kind of alone operating. It's a good introduction to who Foggy Nelson is. So, but yeah, it's great. I love that they're both united over how close they were to stopping Fisk, and how mad they are over Nadim's death, and they're debating over can Daredevil get away with killing Fisk? Like, is it necessarily the wrong thing to do? We're kind of flirting with the moral gray of it all, and Foggy is the ever wavering support of the system here, and kind of gets Mahoney to agree to, all right, fine, I'm going to send in my C team, the rookies and the retirees. That's all you'll get. It's a kind of a great gray there, where it's like, I'll bring popcorn to watch Daredevil kill Fisk.
Right.
Yeah, but again, it's Foggy kind of bolstering morale and kind of morality in people, and just kind of doing the right thing, is kind of being that omnipresent, just kind of the goodest, the best character, and basically the most morally upright character in the whole show, when you really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of is. All right.
Okay, so I guess with that in mind, oh wait, I'm sorry, one more.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped myself. Let's get to Matt and Maggie.
Yep. So
Right,
this is the big reconciliation here, because Matt, they shared a brief scene when they're basically kind of hiding out in the church, where again Matt has learned that his mother is Maggie this whole time, but he kind of give her kind of a glib cold shoulder, if you will. But now, after everything's said and done, they finally have a chance to really kind of talk. But what's so great about this, Tiki, is that they're using Lantum's demise, Lantum's sacrifice, as an olive branch to reconcile and to kind of forgive each other, which is what Lantum's last words were, forgive us.
Yes, and and like you said earlier, it really does kind of lead into the whole idea that Maggie is now kind of like in that Lantum role.
Absolutely. I mean, Matt is basically, in Matt, he accepts his Job moments. Basically, in his conversation with Maggie here, it's the fact that what's done is done. He has this wonderful analogy where basically he heard Lantum told him, in terms of how he can cope with his blindness, and how kind of God kind of slighting him in a sense, is that God has a tapestry, we can only see the back of it. It kind of fits with the blindness, although you can't see what the plan is, but it kind of works out, and that's kind of what Matt accepts at the end of the day here, where the Daredevil's good outweighed the bad. So even though I lost out in a relationship with my mother, he's now seeing the positive side of things, where, going forward, she'll be his Lantum. And what's so great about this too is the fact that it's like he's respecting her path and her role as she does his. Like, you're a vigilante, and you're devout to to being a sister, to the sisterhood of it all. And in this way, they can be in each other's lives in an unconventional way, but they can. That's the closest they're going to have to a mother-son dynamic. But they can still be in each other's lives as a mother and a son would be, which is really sweet when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I honestly, I think you pretty much summed it up, Dragon. There's not really much for me to add there. I think we can go ahead and move on.
All right.
All right. Let's get into Dare to be Different. How does this episode dare to be different, Dragon? Oh my god. I don't know why I'm so excited.
So first off, then let me analyze the title for the last time here. Of course, you're probably wondering, hey, how is he going to analyze New Napkin? I'm going to tell you how. So the new napkin, of all one could say, the emphasis on the new, it's that we're redefining our options here, where you think things are set in stone when really they're not. We're seeking new possibilities. Where you think, okay, getting back to the status quo is an impossible thing. How are we going to do that? We'll just create a new napkin. We're going to find a new way out of here. So now you don't have to kill Fisk. You can find another way, which is kind of what Matt does. We find another way, and we kind of, in doing so, we kind of link that up with the creation of a new napkin with the whole reformation of Nelson Murdoch and Paige.
Sure. Okay, let's see. Like I really do like the how Matt's plan with Bullseye kind of goes out of hand.
Oh yeah.
It's just kind of like the whole idea of like, oh well, basically, Dragon. It's the perversion of the hero teaming up with the lesser villain to defeat the main villain. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely a subversion, to be sure. Let's see.
I've always glowed about. I'm sorry. Do you want to finish your thought there?
Dragon, I want to address something, all right? And it's not necessarily a dare to be different. It's almost kind of like an anti-dare to be different. And that's the fact that, what do you think of the fact that this season maybe ends a little too easily? Like, the happy ending is wrapped up with a bow. Like, honestly, just because I feel like it's maybe a little bit too conventional for this show's own good.
Well, I mean, I don't view it that way, but even if you do view it that way, I would say that look, they've been through so much, and I mean, it leads to kind of like a final battle. And when you say bow on it, what do you mean? You mean it's like it just kind of leads to this one battle, and then we have kind of aftermath after that?
No. I mean specifically the actual new napkin of it all. The whole like, well, they're all in a good place, and they're going to move on to reopen the law firm, and you know what I mean.
Well, my argument is that it is that simple. That's why it's like, well, they just wanted their buddy back, and they finally have Matt back after everything that they went through. So like, why wouldn't they just reopen Nelson and Murdoch now? Because I remember, especially with Jessica Jones season 2, Foggy's not working at Jerry Hogarth's anymore, so he's a free agent, and he's not running for DA anymore. So he's kind of a lawyer, and why not go back into practice with Matt if they're all buddies again?
All right, fair enough.
That's my 2 cents on it, I guess. I've always been glowing about the color theory of this show. I'm going to try to keep this brief, but let me just put it simply. Of course, our main colors that have meaning here, we got reds, our blacks, and our whites. And then the reds kind of symbolizing religion, violence, and kind of letting the devil out, one could say. Whatever Daredevil's really going into, and of course, like it's kind of the when you're beating somebody, you have the blood and everything shooting. That's point being that's kind of our let the devil out color. White, of course, is kind of a corrupt fiction that we think someone's like gleaming pure and is kind of like kind of garbed in white. In reality, that's a fiction. That's kind of the summary color of the Kingpin. And black is kind of our transitional color, our hero color, because that's what Matt wears. And of course, Fisk at the very start of things is wearing black. Again, it's the transitional color. The point is, we do a lot with that, and that's really present in this episode, especially during our last battle. A character garbed in black, red, and white. So. It's there.
Specifically in the rabbit in the snowstorm moment that I kind of joked about earlier, but it might be a little bit on the nose with the symbolism, but I don't care. Matthew Buck can have a dragon.
That he can. We have some really great transitions and like kind of really great shots here. Like for example, the transition at the very start of the episode where we kind of fade from from Daredevil looking to Fisk looking out when we kind of link up our two openings there. It's really great. You just kind of have the two of them staring at each other. It's almost like a Prince of Egypt shot, really.
Kind of is, yeah, I can see that.
I love the reflection in Vanessa's eye shot, where basically they're reading their vow. Basically, the vows are being exchanged and everything, and Fisk, the I do's are being exchanged, and Fisk is looking into Vanessa's eyes, and you can actually see his reflection if you freeze frame it. By the way, if you really look, it's really great. And again, in compliment to her whole "we're all broken" speech, which is a really good speech, basically saying we're all broken. We're just trying to find other broken people to kind of complete the pieces, essentially. Which is again really good writing all throughout the episode. Let me see the major stuff here. Legalese. We had some good legalese in this episode, don't we?
Yes, for sure.
The dying declaration of it all. Little fun fact.
You're right. Kind of makes you feel like you're watching Better Call Saul again.
Yep.
Dragon Season 5 is starting to feel a little bit more tangible because we're kind of getting into the, we're well into the second half of 2019 at this point. So,
it's getting there.
It's getting there.
The visit to the FBI. That's a great sequence. Really tension filled. Again, like Foggy using his NYPD connections to kind of as a safety net, where he's like taking a selfie.
The notepad is the source of tension of all things.
Oh yeah, again, it sounds so simple. I know, out of context, folks. A notepad, but no, it's like it's this great coded conversation that Foggy has with Seema per Nadim's instructions. It's really clever. Speaking of Foggy, in classy way of conceding the election, again, he just kind of says, well, I want Wilson Fisk taking care of Anita, so I'm dropping out of the DA race with a smile on his face, fulfilling his promise. It's a great way of, again, it's kind of we subverted the way it goes in the comics in a great way where, Foggy just kind of loses to corruption being the idea. Here was a much more, we've been kind of saying this for a few episodes now, but again, it's a really good payoff, I suppose.
Yeah.
And last two bits here, just, again, I love that throughout this whole season, Matt and Fisk are united in the very last episode.
For sure.
And of course, an extraordinary, because we're not going to really go into it fully, we just to kind of acknowledge it here, an extraordinary three-way fight. Again, we always kind of step up the action when it comes.
Our blinding moments are in the fight.
Very true. Again, I guess the episode kind of gives closure to the series as a whole. It's not like a one that kind of leaves you. Bear in mind, there's an opening with the bullseye coda at the end, but on the whole, this is like a satisfying ending to a series. It's not leaving you on the hook like some other Netflix series. Let's say Iron Fist specifically.
Right.
But again, an extraordinary three-way fight. Just always Daredevil stepping up the action. All right.
Okay. Just moving on to the blinding moment of awesome. Blind Matt Murdock.
Blinded you with Murdock.
Okay, so yeah, as I mentioned, both our moments are from the proverbial fight in the episode. Interestingly, one kicks off the fight and the other kind of ends the fight. It's a nice bookend, Dragon.
Oh yeah, because folks, we're going to be here all day if we break down all the great action beats. We're just going to cover the important parts.
All right, so Dragon, one of my favorite moments, honestly, I'm not even going to lie, in the whole series, just because, like you said, it is Bullseye fully formed at this point. It's just like, at this point, it's 100% Bullseye. It's like the man has totally submerged himself into Crazy Town and he's living there. He's taken up a full residency in Crazy Town at this point, where he just, in the middle of the dance, in the middle of I love how dignified everyone's taking the wedding, by the way. Like the announcer, like, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson Fisk will now have the first dance as a married couple. It's like they're doing everything so by the books of a wedding, and it's just all so polite. And of course, everyone's kind of there out of fear, but still, it's like on face value, the wedding is very dignified and polite and proper. But then along comes the crazed man in the Daredevil costume, grabs the microphone. We get the classic microphone screech. Then he says, Julie and I would like to make a toast. We wish you the absolute best. And then what does he do, Dragon? He throws the microphone right up to Fisk, and Daredevil catches it just in the nick of time. A great start to an awesome fight that ends. That's the peak of the action of the whole show. So yeah, really, really good. Really kind of memorable, quotable line. And like I said, it's Bullseye at his absolute most crazy.
Full on Jason Aaron Bullseye. It's him driving up with the frozen body in the passenger seat. Remember, it says, "Hey, this is Agent Lim. He's one of the good ones." Just
right.
see, I think I don't know if they were like just kind of thought about this at all. Like, what if would he bring Julie up on stage? You know, would have been a little creepy if they did that.
All right.
All right, so for me, easily blinding moment. Honestly, this is my favorite moment in the entire season 3. If I'm being frank, this moment. I mean, I always stick by, as I've said before.
Top 5 of the whole show.
Yes. See, for me, well, I re-experienced each episode like for the second time when we were doing these. Again, I binged it the first time when it came out, and then of course we just kind of re-experienced these kind of episode by episode as we go through this. The one moment though that I watch constantly is the big culmination of the three-way fight, which is this scene, because I just couldn't help myself because I do love this scene so much. So I call it the deal with the devil moment here. So the idea, so after all is said and done, after Bullseye's dispatched with after his spine is broken, um, so then it's Matt and Fisk, and they're having at it. And these guys, who again, they've affected each other so much without having shared a scene together until this fight, which fascinates me. By the way, I love it so much. It's just as great as the action is, it all hinges on the moral stakes here, which is all in this scene. And we built up for a few episodes now that Matt literally killed the psychological Fisk in his mind, the psychological manifestation of Fisk, the hallucination of Fisk. He killed him in his mind. We saw how that went down exactly like it kind of builds up to here. Where Matt has thought about this many a time. He's actually done it. We never saw that Fisk again, by the way. So that Fisk is legit dead in his mind. He's dead to him. He's dead set on doing this. And it's just this. Everything is it's so artfully composed. I love the framing of the shots so much, where he's kind of basically see kind of Daredevil looking at Fisk and everything. It's so well composed. Like, he hits him 23 times, very brutally, with those Muay Thai ropes. And of course, the idea is like you wrap. It's like an old boxing trick. It's an old fighting trick. It's like you tie ropes around your knuckles instead of like a brass knuckles or a boxing glove. It's going to do a lot of damage. Those Muay Thai ropes definitely come in handy here. So the point being, he's having at Fisk here. Like, Fisk even gets like a little, I call it a raging bull moment, where he's looking at Vanessa. And again, that's his weakness. While he's fighting Daredevil, he headbutts him for a moment. He's like down. He's looking at Vanessa with love in his eyes. And then Daredevil takes him down because of that in that fight. Has at him, and of course he's beating him in the face. And of course we have the big staining of Rabbit in a snowstorm, which is something I've called ever since season 1 of that happening. And it finally happens. Because again, it's like, how could it not? I mean, Daredevil fighting Kingpin, and presumably if he's ever in the residence of the Kingpin, that painting is going to get stained as all get out. And of course, the symbolism of the color, the two stories kind of meeting each other. We're yet again recontextualizing what Rabbit in a Snowstorm means. The point being, this scene just keeps getting better and better as the seconds go on, is what I'm getting at, I guess. And then my favorite moment of all is when Fisk is like arms out, like he's ready to be ended here. Where Daredevil, like he's about to snap his neck, and he just stops, and gives him a primal scream, which is usually Fisk's MO, like because he just can't do it.
I love that was built up and foreshadowed.
Mm-hmm. And Fisk just then with his arms spread, just waiting for it, says, "I will never stop hunting Karen Page and Foggy Nelson, or tell the world who you are." And of course, as Daredevil coming to the realization, you want me to kill you. And again, Fisk has nothing to lose here. Fisk he got that one day of happiness. He lived the best day of his life. He's gotten everything he could ever want in life in this one day that's already happened. So he welcomes death. Such a brilliant idea. And again, Matt, just at the end of the day, he refuses to let Fisk destroy who he is. And he basically emasculates Fisk. He overpowers Fisk. And this is the proactivity I was talking about here, where he gives Fisk a taste of his own medicine. This is the better version of the whole basically they kind of redid 20 billion times better you could ever do the scene in the Daredevil movie, the whole beaten by a blind man. Imagine how the prisoners will react to that whole defeat in the Daredevil movie. We just infinitely do it better here. I mean, just to throw shade the Daredevil movie, but that's the fact. The scene just so perfectly complements the season as a whole, gives him a taste of his own medicine. He basically takes his power away here, and it's kind of folks, I can go on about this. I'm just going to limit it to this. the scene gets to the core of who these two men are in both sides of the alter ego. It's a fighter and a fixer. Again, like the man who's orchestrating, making money off of people, like doing what he wants, and a fighter, which of course is the cornerstones of what Daredevil's origin with his father is, and of course what it really boils down to with the deal in terms of like if you will keep my secret. It like, removes his mask, looks him right in the eye, blind man looking him right in the eye. Mask up, saying, you will keep my secret, because if you don't, I will go after your wife for the murder of Agent Nadim. Again, getting some Nadim justice in there too. It's even better. And at the end of the day, him shaking on this
legal equivalent of, I will kill your wife, I will kill your son, I will kill your infant daughter.
Essentially, yeah, it's a less murdery version of that, but yeah.
Right.
No, but seriously, I mean, think of how beautiful it is. It kind of boils into what these two characters are: the lawyer and the businessman making an arrangement. And again, it's Daredevil having to kind of acknowledge in that moment that he is kind of like Fisk, and I can't kill him, but I can't let him get away, and he's going to go to prison, but I have something over him. He's playing Fisk's game, and Fisk is defeated in the most humiliating way to him personally. That's so brilliant. So just a perfect moment, just my absolute favorite moment of all of season 3. And as Tiki said, top 5 material in the whole series as a whole. Maybe it's in the top 3. Maybe even the 3, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Braille Trail, woot woot.
All right, so I guess the big one we should talk about, Bullseye. So Bullseye's spinal surgery, which does happen in the comic, and even in the Daredevil movie too, because he's getting the spinal surgery there.
Sorry.
And basically, there's a little Easter egg in there, T. It's a big Easter egg. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't think they're gonna be able to do anything with. But the doctor who's performing the surgery is Dr. Oyama. Dr. Oyama, for those who may be aware, he was the guy who created the adamantium bonding procedure. So the idea is they tried to slip in a little bit of adamantium into the MCU in here. And also, he's Lady Deathstrike's father. I don't think they were thinking that far ahead. Well, the point being, the guy created the adamantium bonding procedure, and Bullseye getting a spinal surgery like the comic. And also, that last shot, we got the Bullseye logo in his eye, which is really cool.
Sure. Yeah, we definitely get a little bit of some breadcrumbs to what the show could potentially be in a season 4. Unfortunately, most of them probably aren't going to be realized.
You know what I always assumed season 4 was going to be? And again, there was a plan for season 4. I mean, rumored to be season 4 and 5 even. I mean, yeah, remember, D'Onofrio is like, he's still, to this day, I swear to God, Tiki, I don't know if it was happenstance or the stars aligning. I looked today, I saw an article that said D'Onofrio, like, kind of gave a quote of, like, I'm still working on it, kid. Like Babe Ruth to somebody, like someone like put a tweet out or something, says, I'm working on it, kid.
God.
Adorable. I love it. I love since D'Onofrio really, like, he and the rest of the cast, they're all very much in favor of coming back. And I love that D'Onofrio hasn't given up. He's the most vocal voice in trying to get Marvel to give Daredevil season 4, or at least bring him back in some.
Well, like we keep pitching, Dragon, like you and I keep preaching, I honestly, as good as everyone else is, like Deborah Ann Wool and I'm sorry, the name I want to say
Eldon Henson, Charlie Cox.
Yes, I'm thinking of the guy who fucking played Solo, but yeah, Eldon Henson. Yes, all these guys are great, but really, at the end of the day, it comes down to 2 names, 2 faces: Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio. Dragon. Honestly, the series, as far as I'm concerned, can be done if we could just get those 2 in the MCU proper.
I hear you, buddy. I do.
All I really want.
If I'm being greedy, I go for Wilson Bethel, but I'm open. I'm saying if we only have 2 life preservers left, I'm sorry, we gotta go D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox.
Right.
That I absolutely we're very simpatico on that. I know, yeah.
All right. Do you want to talk about anything that was like built up and paid off?
Yeah, why don't you take the lead?
Okay, I think the big blood on the rabbit in the snowstorm is one of them for sure.
Speaking of which, I'm sorry, Fisk is wearing a rabbit in the snowstorm suit, which is so cool. By the way, he has like the white pattern on his wedding suit is rabbit in a snowstorm. The man has become a symbol, which is awesome.
I have an idea.
Remember that's Melvin Potter made that for him, because that's why he puts on Vanessa during that scene, because again, it's like going to deflect some it's kind of it's protection. It's kind of like an Under Armour sort of thing.
Oh,
So again, like the symbol of their love is also going to protect them in a sense, if you want to look at it that way.
God.
Let's
Let
see.
we
Go on.
have, of course, all the stuff with Bullseye being fully realized. He's now finally, with the exception of the actual Bullseye costume, he's by all intents and purposes, from a characterization point of view, Bullseye Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the new Napkin kind of wraps things up with the three core characters very nicely. It's a nice finalized note to end out on.
Mm-hmm. We saw bloody. Here's a great payoff. We saw a young bloody Wilson Fisk, which is a direct pull from Shadows Under Glass, the famed episode 8 we constantly bring up.
Sure, sure.
Here's a little fun fact. So Vanessa puts a rose in Fisk's suit at the start of things. There now, again, of all the flowers he's going through, she puts a rose in there for a very specific pull. It's a deep cut pull, mind you, but in the comics, Kingpin and Vanessa had a son who was named Richard Fisk, and when he grew up, he became kind of an assassin by the name of, basically a criminal by the name of the Rose. So it's kind of a little nod to him. And he basically, when he kills someone, he leave a rose, and that's why the Daredevil movie had Kingpin killing people and leaving roses when he did that. It's a little nod.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting.
We had a reference to some
Well,
more of the Netflix, more of the Marvel Netflix stuff. Jessica Jones, she got referenced.
She did.
And we've been saying, Karen and Jessica Jones would be good buddies, and they apparently, yeah, I still, that's a show I would watch. Jessica Jones and Karen Page meeting each other and being buddies.
I still like the idea that an early movie fight special pitched about a Robert Downey Jr. and Jessica Jones team up show.
Oh God, that'd be cool. It's very much motivated by alcoholism, but that's a good idea, though.
Well, no, the whole idea is that it would explore the alcoholism.
Sure. Basically, yeah, you're right. It does sound pretty cool, though.
Dragon, this is going to sound silly, but it'd basically be the MCU leaving Las Vegas.
Might be. Let's see. Oh, here's a big one we got to talk about. The Man Without Fear speech. Yeah, the Man Without Fear speech. It's it's so good. Like basically during Lantum's eulogy, Matt gives out this speech about basically he talks about in kind of facing fears and kind of conquering your fears that kind of prevent you from basically what Matt's been contending with this whole season, where you have to avoid. Essentially, you have to avoid kind of the things that hold you back from the from your friends and family and so on and so forth, and basically kind of frames it under Man Without Fear. Of course, is the big famed nickname of Daredevil. Of course, you said, well, a man who jumps off rooftops, you'd have to call him the Man Without Fear, being the gag.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that we tied in the Lantum, though. It's really sweet there.
Yeah, and like you said, I love how it's not like a big declarative statement. It's more of just kind of like a finalized piece of his character arc.
Yeah, and of course, you gotta remember the deepest thing the show is based on is the Man Without Fear comic, where that's where you get the black suit on Daredevil from, where he basically wore that before he ended up on the red color. So.
Uh-huh.
Here's the thing. What's weird? I want to get your take on this. And again, it's okay if you don't know the answer to this, but when you saw the frozen bodies, the first one that he finds, did it look like Melvin Potter to you? Because I for life of me, I can't find confirmation on this. Because first watch, I thought it was Melvin Potter. Every watch, I find it's Melvin Potter, but I can't find him in the credits, so I don't know what the deal is. If he was killed and is kind of stored with the rest of the frozen bodies.
I'm going to be honest with you, Dragon. I have to go back and look at it. I don't remember any. Off the top of my head, I don't remember any bodies that look like Melvin, but I'd have to really study it to give you a conclusive answer on that one.
Well, the point being, I can't make heads or tails of it anyway, so don't feel too bad. Even if you find it might be a hard thing. But I hope he's not dead, but it looked like to me like, oh, poor Melvin.
I mean, I do think there's more story potential with him.
Absolutely, but again, here's the thing. There's like a column of like Melvin's alive, and then there's the column of poor Melvin's dead, because I'm thinking about, well, yeah, he could roll on Fisk if he really wanted to, but he's threatening Betsy, so it's kind of unclear.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's see. I think I got, of course, the big payoff. Fisk's proposal to Vanessa at the end of season 1 all the way to the wedding, and Fisk's buddies at the wedding, such as Rosalie Carbone, who was in Luke Cage season 2.
Sure.
Got chained a few there. You got anything else? Because I think I
My
got.
favorite, my absolute favorite season of TV ever, Luke Cage season 2.
I already mentioned the color connected, but all again, red being faith and all that sort of stuff. So I already went through that. I got one more, unless you got anything else.
No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay, last one. You mentioned the napkin, which of course is a famed pull for the show as a whole. Of course, the formation of Nelson Murdoch. But I just want to take a moment to acknowledge something beautiful about the napkin. As we mentioned with D'Onofrio trying to save the show, they said there's a whole movement, the whole campaign to save the show that just charms me to no end is the hashtag Save Daredevil movement. And a big thing they did, it harkens back to what you do in the '90s, or basically whenever before the internet was really a thing, Tiki, or at least when the internet was in its infancy, people would send things into the television stations. They'd send things into the companies that would cancel their shows to bring them back. Like they'd send, like for Family Guy, they sent to Fox numerous cans of dog food and packages of diapers to symbolize Family Guy, and that brought it back. They do stuff like that. And here, what they did, they had this campaign where it's like, write an email to, for me, example, I wrote an email to Marvel as they kind of asked all the fans, like, write an email to Marvel, just kind of ask them to bring the show back, which I did. But you also had the option of writing on like one side of a napkin, maybe sending two napkins. That one that said hashtag Save Daredevil, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. Not under that movement, you'd write in Nelson, Nelson, Murdoch, and Page, and on the flip side, it would say like again the whole hashtag Save Daredevil. That's what I'm thinking of. Point being that you'd send in something like that. You mail an actual physical napkin to Marvel and try to get the show back, which I think is just so darn charming. And you can see numerous napkins. These things are like people taking photos of all this, and it's really kind of a beautiful idea, I think.
Nice.
It kind of shows the support for the show, even though, again, the axe may have fallen. But you know what? There's always a little bit of hope for Matt was resurrected in this show. Why couldn't he be again?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay. So with that in mind, let's move on to the last segment, the Nelson and Murdoch verdict. Dragon, I'm getting misty-eyed. We're here. We did it.
Yep.
And in only an hour, no less. I'm so proud of us. Time management, my friend. It's on our side.
Told you it was the end game. It was end game act 2.
You were actually shockingly right about that.
And you should start us off, Tiki. You start us off.
Okay, so yeah, I think this, honestly, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Dragon. This isn't the best finale ever or anything like that. Like, I do think it is kind of hindered by the fact that, like, it kind of serves as, like, yeah, it is a series finale and the fact that our characters are in a good place, but it could be open-ended with the bullseye stuff. Like, there's a little bit of a disconnect there, narratively. But at the end of the day, it's got a really explosive confrontation that might not be on the same level in terms of choreography as some of the big hallway fights in this show, but it's definitely on a next level in terms of just sheer raw emotion attached to that said fight. And it's a good wrap up of all the characters. We have a really fun interplay with Dex and Matt that kind of centers around a lot of the episode. Just generally speaking, as we went through it, all the characters get pretty good resolutions. Fisk has that great moment of not being able to say goodbye to Vanessa that, kind of caps off his story arc quite nicely of losing control completely. So all in all, in spite of the lingering threads and in spite of the fact that this show was definitely canceled too soon, I'm satisfied with this finale. I don't want to say I'm over the moon completely with this finale, but I'm satisfied with it, to be sure.
Yeah, for me, this episode is a perfect end to an exceptional season in an unparalleled quality series. Because I've always said that of Daredevil. I've always said that it's especially with the first season specifically. It's probably the most perfect live action superhero show I've ever seen. I still stand by that. And season 3, again, it's definitely befitting of season 1. It's definitely full circle in all the best ways.
Mm-hmm.
And again, back to the episode itself. So again, I think the episode has stellar action and stakes to match as well. The season overall, not a miss really. There's not a miss in the season really. There's the characters, whether it's the plotting, everything. and look for any of the subversions, because the only nitpick I keep hearing with season 3 is, of course, the big Karen. Because basically, people are going to be one side of that, like they should have killed Karen, maybe they shouldn't have killed Karen. You know what? Again, because people go into the season expecting Born Again or the Guardian Devil of it all, where we basically do some horrible stuff to Karen Page and we kill her off. But again, I would still make the argument at the end here, to kind of get in one last time. So, all the stuff they did complemented the greater story as I see it. So it was all appropriate. And again, it was, I think it all worked out at the end of the day. For the story they were telling, kind of the story they built up for seasons now. And season 3 as a whole complements the perfection of season 1 with a mirrored full circle close. And I echo your sentiments entirely. It's very fulfilling. It's very satisfying. I'm very satisfied with this finale and just satisfied with the series as a whole. And on a personal note, to kind of go out here, on a personal note, we've reached the end of the Netflix Daredevil, and while I know I'm not alone in wishing it were still around for going for a season 4, we've had we have a Napkin campaign, even D'Onofrio giving us hope, and Disney Plus. What we do tangibly have with Disney Plus trying to replicate the initial success of Marvel Netflix as a concept. Remember, they got the foot in the door for like, hey, let's do Marvel shows on TV. They're doing really good, doing like in a streaming capacity. That does stem from Marvel Netflix, and all stems at the core from the legacy of Daredevil. Of all things, at its best, it's Daredevil. And whatever happens going forward, which we don't know, no one can take this series away from us. Really, no one can do that. And how it. And how it kind of brought the MCU at its best into our living rooms, and in an age where all is possible, maybe we'll see our old friends again, maybe, but if not, it was quite a ride, wouldn't you say, my friend?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, so that's all for now in what seems to be our last installment of Discerning Daredevil. Excelsior?
Enough said.
Goodbye, Matthew.